Hello, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Get started
I'm
here.
trying to turn my audio up. What's going on?
You're clear.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it be because
Okay.
I don't want to start messing with stuff right before.
Always happens.
And where are you located?
Savannah, Georgia.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, awesome. That is on my list of places to go soon. I hear it's beautiful.
It
Hello,
is.
hello,
Look at
hello.
you.
Hello, ladies.
Hi,
How are you guys doing?
I-
doing
I'm good.
well.
You're not wearing the zebra.
I'm not. So,
I
so
feel some
Talisha
type of
tried to
way.
get me to it. Okay, so let's tell the
No,
whole
no,
story.
no. I
Bringing
didn't
this
get you
up.
to try to do nothing.
Let's tell the whole story.
Yeah, whole
So we
story.
went to this amazing conference this weekend. Um, Black women who love outdoor spaces had their annual conference, and we had this amazing time. We went with the intention of not talking about us as the 10K project, but really talking about the founders that we've been able to be a part of their journey. And so we had some amazing founders donate some products to us, and Uncle Waithley's donated some ginger beer, and we had Positivity Water gave us water, and like I hope Benson Watch gave us some watches. Members in the community who
Oh,
have products gave us some products to Seda, Greg's, and Lakina Horn and Vanessa Sowell and Tatiana Fortune. Like all of these founders gave us some stuff. And so we just kind of had people spin a wheel and they won stuff. We gave stuff away.
mhm.
We directed all of the traffic and the interest back to the founders' websites, not to our own. And we just had this amazing weekend where we were blessed beyond belief. And one of the nights was a pajama night. And so I had this great idea that we would wear the same pajamas. I didn't get to go to a lot of pajama parties when I was little because my mother didn't let me go out a lot. Like if somebody had like a daddy or a big brother, we couldn't go. So I didn't have a lot of pajama nights when I was little, right? So I was kind of reliving this pajama moment. And we had these, what was a zebra? There were zebra pajamas.
Zebra. She made let's be true. The theme was animal print. So
Animal print,
there was
correct.
a
The theme was
theme.
animal print.
Right. So let's
And so we had zebra pajamas. And Talisha wanted to wear the shirt tonight. I was like, absolutely not.
Well, first of all, it was a zebra print shirt. We all three wore it. So then we had, but I don't know if she understood. I am 5'8", and I don't really need to be in anything that elongates my legs. So
Mm,
now I look like Urkel walking around the conference center, looking like a zebra, looking for my
mm.
herd when I can't find. So they knew we
Oh,
went with each
goodness.
other because they're like, your zebra's over there. If you miss her, she's over
That
there.
is so funny.
So yeah, I thought if we were going to carry the theme, let's continue on that we are the zebra herd. Mm-hmm.
So she
I'm
texted me right
going.
before the meeting and said, "Do you have your shirt on?" I was like, "No,
I
ma'am."
did. I
No,
had my
ma'am.
shirt on, but I
No,
switched.
ma'am.
So I
Oh,
had my shirt
okay.
on. She wasn't happy. She wasn't trying to be my zebra
Wow,
bird person no more. Okay, I see how you do me. That's fine.
that's
Oh my
funny.
goodness. But
Yeah.
an amazing weekend, an amazing weekend. We've already committed to do it again next year and trying to figure out how to bring some of the founders in that have products and services. So someone like you guys, right? To be able to highlight secure living. We're already talking about like what the step and repeat has on it, where we can put, some of the founders logos on it as well. I just loved how it felt this weekend, right? What we do for the founders is really with the intent to help raise capital in the moment, right? But what I realize is, we provide membership. We say we want you to be a part of the community, and what that means to me is that we support you through the entire journey, right? It's not one and done. It's not after the campaign closes that we step away. And so this weekend kind of made that all come to life.
Mhm.
And so I was really, really pleased and blessed to be able to do that. And so we're going to do it next year. My wheels are already turning. We've had a 14-hour drive home from Houston. Just got back this morning at like 9. So I'm
Wow.
tired, but still on a high as well, thinking
Mhm.
about what next year looks like and how we can bring in not just the product-based founders and what does that look like. And so super excited, but super excited to have you guys here with us. And you brought hubby with you this time.
I
So
did.
that's
I did.
so that's wonderful. Wonderful to get to meet him. To the community, I see you all coming in. What time is it? We're just 1 minute after. So let's give you guys a couple of minutes to come on in. And we will talk to the founders of Secure Living, right? Our Black-owned real estate crowdfunding portal. And I'm super, super excited to hear what they have going on. And they're going to do a little education for us tonight, right? Because again, we asked the founders to be a part of the community, and they have these specialties, these things that they know and they love and they're really good at. And so we're a community that wants to educate ourselves. And so what better way to get that education than from the people who know it best, right? And so super excited. Thank you guys both for coming and joining us. I say let's get started at 4 minutes after. So let's give the community 2 more minutes.
Perfect.
And we don't typically go live on Monday, but I'm feeling like it. So let me just go live.
We're switching it up on me.
Let's just switch it up. We can give some more exposure to Secure Living too. Let's just do that. Let's just do that. Group. There we go. I think we are successfully live. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I see you all in here with us at Zoom. I love when the members come into Zoom. I love it when you guys come and join us on Monday. And I love it when you guys come and join us on Tuesday. This is where the magic is happening. So we go live because there's a little bit of magic that happens live, but all the real magic happens right here in the Zoom. So if you have the Zoom link, come on in, stop playing games, make it on, put it on your Monday and your Tuesday schedule so that you can be here with us all the time. We've got some comments in the chat. Kevin says, wow. Oh, where did you hear her speak at? Kevin, where did you hear her?
Oh, let's see. So we are actually working with a potential, with a sponsor that we met through the 10K project. And he had a webinar last night, and Kevin was on that call. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of connections and magic happening behind the scenes. So good stuff.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's get started. It's 6:04. Like I said, I'm still on I'm on a half high and half exhaustion tour within myself right now. So but it's all good. It's a good feeling. Please, to the community, we have some amazing guests with us tonight. You may be familiar. We have highlighted the Stokes before with Secure Living. You remember they are the only Black-owned investment crowdfunding portal for real estate that accepts non-accredited investors as well. There's some other platforms out there that do something special with accredited investors, but not here. Here, it's everybody that gets the opportunity, right? That seat at the table should not just be reserved for people who have a certain accreditation status, especially when sometimes we all have the same money. When you talk about disposable income, right? I always say people who have $1 million liquid and make $300,000 a year may have less money than someone who makes a lot less than that when you talk about disposable income and being responsible with money. So I am one of those people that I would love to see the SEC change the rules. And one day I believe that they will. And so in the meantime, though, we have the parameters upon which we work in. And so I want you guys to take a minute. Please introduce yourself. Let's talk a little bit about the platform first. I know we're not here to talk about the platform, but we can't not talk about the platform, right? So let's talk about the platform, and then we'll get into today's topic.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm Vontina Stokes, CEO and one of the co-founders of Secure Living. As mentioned, we are a federally regulated funding portal specifically focused on real estate. So our goal is to really bridge the gap between real estate investing and the local community. We believe that not only the real estate investors should benefit from those investment opportunities, but the individuals and communities that they touch as well. So that was really kind of the passion behind starting the business. We wanted to help people who were like us. We wanted to help family and friends. And as soon as you go outside that network of people that when it comes to raising capital for real estate, there's different rules and regulations that are involved in that. So we went down that route to get, regulated with the SEC and FINRA. So we're currently onboarding a few projects on our platform. Some of you have already been super engaged. Thank you so much for, just being a part of our community as well. Some of you guys have signed up for an account. You've submitted interest in some of the deals that are coming to our platform. So, that really means a lot for us to see your involvement, and we really appreciate it. When it comes to, our background, Chris and I are husband and wife, dynamic duo, we like to say. So I have a background in marketing. We're both real estate investors. Chris has a background in finance, banking, compliance. And maybe, Chris, you just want to say hello. I don't want to take away from your own thunder.
So basically what she's saying, she's my boss at home and at work, right? So
we got that, Chris. We got that.
My name is Chris. Have an extensive background in financial services, starting from equity analyst all the way to compliance regulatory, which I handle for Secure Living. I do a lot of the vetting of the sponsors that come across our platform, and ensure that the risk level and tolerance is acceptable. And yeah, with that said, I'll let Valentina steer the show.
Okay,
Nice.
awesome. So, if anybody wants to connect with us, it's securelivingrei.com. But tonight we actually really want to focus on a different topic. We have a passion for personal finance. We want people to be educated about different financial topics. So today we're going to be talking about debt. Chris can back me up where needed. But I'll just go ahead and jump into my presentation if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, give me a second. And
We see the screen with your notes.
yep. Okay, that's better, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned today, we really want to talk about mastering debt and how, it affects you. So a little bit later, you'll see why I, wanted to speak about this topic specifically, but just right off the jump, let me say that, everything mentioned here, it shouldn't be taken as legal advice, just putting the disclaimer out here. This is based off my experience, my education, my learnings. So if you need specific information about a topic related to your personal finances, definitely get some legal counsel for that. So we'll be talking about the basics regarding debt, understanding it, types of debt, good debt versus bad debt, how it impacts your credit. We'll be talking about repayment strategies and also what this means for future generations. So why is this a relevant topic? Why is it, crucial now to talk about debt? When you read the headlines, it's very clear. So just for example, more than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Americans' credit card debt hits a record 1 trillion. Student loan pause is ending. So if you were getting some sort of, student loan forgiveness, or let's just say there was a pause on those student loans, that's starting to come back into play now. Inflation is driving up consumer credit card debt by billions of dollars. So these are just some of the headlines. And obviously, people still have to make ends meet. So in many cases, that means tagging on more debt. So let's just understand some of the basic elements when it comes to debt. There's really 3 crucial components. That's banks, interest rates, and capital markets. So just understanding how banks work, they rely on our deposits to stimulate the economy. So Anytime, you go and make a deposit into your bank, a portion of that is set aside for reserves, but a large portion is either invested or loaned out. So these loans are used to fund businesses, mortgages. It's really a pillar of how our economy works. If we were, if Americans were just to go and pull their money out of the bank, we would see financial collapse. It would be catastrophic. So the banks are really relying on our money. And when they loan out these deposits, of course, they charge an interest rate on these loans. That's how we receive, point whatever interest in our savings accounts, or maybe a little bit more in money market accounts. But essentially, that's how we receive our interest rates, because the banks are loaning out money on it, and they're also receiving an interest rate, and they give us a portion of that. So when it comes to capital markets and how this influences debt, these debts and loans can also be resold to investors. So this is, debt securities that are traded in capital markets and offered as investment opportunities for individuals or institutions or governments. So to kind of put this in a simpler way, if you have a mortgage, maybe you've received a letter in the mail that says your mortgage is now going to be serviced by a different financial institution. So what they've done is they've taken your mortgage and a group of other mortgages, and they've now sold them to essentially some other institution. So that kind of gives a broad view of how debt works with regards to banks, our deposits, interest rates, and capital markets. So there's a few ways that debt is categorized. So secured and unsecured. Secured being debt that is backed by an asset. So think about anything that could be taken away from you, stuff that can be repossessed or that can have liens on it. So houses, cars, things like that. And there's also unsecured debt. So this is not backed by any type of collateral. And because of that, this type of debt typically has higher interest rates. So think about credit cards, medical bills, school loans, things of that nature. And when we talk about debt, there's also installments versus revolving. Installments are typically like repaid at a specific interval, at a specific rate for a set duration. So again, mortgages, school loans, and then there's revolving debt that can be reused after the balance is paid down. So like credit cards or home equity lines of credit, for example. So that's kind of just like a high level overview of like the basics when it comes to debt. So what is keeping Americans in debt? Over the past few years, Americans' net worth has increased, but also American debt has increased as well. Robert Kiyosaki says often, the more you make, the more money you spend. And that's why money doesn't make you rich. Assets make you rich. And I mean, I think we can all agree with that. That's why we've, become part of this community, because we're interested in building wealth. We're interested in acquiring assets. But despite all this, we still have to live. And therefore, debt is like a necessary evil to do that. So let's look at what is keeping Americans in debt. The largest chunk is, of course, coming from individuals' mortgage. And these are figures from 2021, but I assume that it's more or less the same, if not worse, at this moment in time. But the largest portion by far of American household debt is the mortgage, which is actually a good thing when we look at all the different types of debt. But that's followed by student loans, auto loans, and credit card debt. And when you think about a household, this may not seem like a lot of debt, but when you factor in interest rates, it can really start to add up. And if we just say, let's just say all of these different types of debt had an interest rate of 5%, which we know is actually not realistic, because credit card debt can easily be in the 20s, for example, but let's just keep it simple and say 5%, then you'd pay roughly $15,000 a year on this debt, or $1,200 a month in interest. So this is just, I don't want to say wasted, but essentially, it's money going down the drain because you're paying it towards interest. And it's not only, American households that are in debt. of course, the US economy is in debt too. We hear about the debt ceiling and how it needs, we need to raise it, and government shutdown. These are things that, are on the plate right now that are being discussed. So I just want to briefly show you, maybe some of you guys are familiar with this, maybe not, but essentially it's the US debt clock. So you see here in the trillions, and it never stops going. And it's pretty interesting because you can actually look back in time. So right now, the debt per citizen is about $100,000. If we look at 1980, $4,000 per citizen. So it's interesting to kind of look in here and see how things have changed over time, or what they're anticipated to be. But I just kind of wanted to show this when we talk about debt, it's also a topic for our economy as well. So if you want to kind of come back in here and play around, if you haven't seen this before, it's usdebtclock.org. Okay. And you guys are seeing the presentation now again, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So when we talk about debt, as I mentioned, mortgages, it's a good thing that that's the largest part of household debt because it's considered good debt. So in general, good debt has the potential to build wealth. So we're talking about mortgages, loans for business. Some people put education loans in this category. I don't know if I would specifically, but I guess that's debatable. And then on the other hand, there's bad debt. So this is debt that tends to have a higher interest rate, depreciating assets, car loans, credit card debt, store credit, cash advances, those sort of things. And here it says, bad debt is used to purchase goods or services that have no lasting value. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about how debt basically impacts our credit. So the largest chunk, and let me preface by saying, depending on the credit bureau, these numbers could vary slightly, but this kind of seems to be like the standard. So the first large chunk being payment history, the 35%. So this is the most crucial factor when it comes to your credit score. So it assesses whether you've paid your bills on time, if you have late payments or collections, public records like bankruptcy, tax liens, all of those things that can negatively impact your credit score. And the next largest chunk is credit utilization, or the amount owed. So this factors in the amount of credit that you're using compared to your total available credit limit. So obviously the lower your credit utilization, that's generally better for your credit score. And then we jump down the orange section, making up 15% with it, which is the length of credit history. So it looks at how long you've been using your credit. A longer credit history is obviously better for you. I know when I was, getting out of high school and college and trying to make my way, this was definitely a point that really prohibited me. And in later slides, I'll talk about what we can do, to help those younger than us, who are starting out, who have questions about credit, or, what we can do to kind of empower young people when it comes to taking action about their credit. So the next chunk in the purple, the type of credit. So this is having a mix of different types of credit accounts. So this positively impacts your credit score. This can be, credit cards or installment loans or mortgages. And then the last section being new credit accumulation. So this considers the number of recent credit inquiries and newly opened account. So like frequent new credit applications will potentially lower your credit score. So if you're looking at any type of debt product, or if you're looking at loans and things like that, a good question to ask is is this going to be like a hard hit or a soft hit on my credit? So that basically will determine how long that inquiry is going to stay on, your credit record, and different things like that lenders will look at when they pull your credit. And again, this breakdown is just a reference. Different, agencies may slightly weigh these differently. So these are the items that should have no impact on your credit score. Age, sex, gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, your income, assets, employment status, religious or political affiliations, marital status, the interest rates you've already paid on existing accounts, and whether you receive like public assistance or have ever used credit counseling. Now, I say that these are the things that should not impact your credit score, but we all know that there is inherent bias when we fill out these applications. When we apply for certain lines of credit and things like that, these things are being looked at. And unfortunately, there's going to be, I don't want to say human error, but, there's hurdles for us to overcome. So that's just, a part of the challenge that we deal with as a people. But I think it's, something that we're overcoming collectively as people become more educated about these topics and feel more empowered to do something about it. When it comes to credit scores, I also just wanted to note, as good stewards of our finances, we should be keeping an eye on our credit score at a minimum. Pull your credit report annually, make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary, make sure there hasn't been anything with fraudulent activity. So on annualcreditreport.com, you can pull a free report once a year. This is typically through like Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, one of the big three bureaus. And some banks also offer this service as well. So just as we steward our finances, it's good to keep an eye on your credit score as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about repayment strategies when it comes to paying off debt. This is not an exhaustive list. There are things I didn't mention, like a budget. I know like sometimes it can be easy not to budget when your finances are doing very well, but in general, it's just a good practice. But the first thing I have on here is just to list all your debts. By making a list of your debts, including like outstanding balance, interest rates, minimum monthly payment, this will give you a clearer picture of the obligations that you have committed to. If you don't know what your debts are, they're very hard to manage, obviously. It's also good to prioritize high interest debt. So we'll talk a little bit about in the next slide, like the avalanche method versus the snowball. Maybe some of you guys are familiar with that, but we'll discuss that. Also consider consolidation. So consolidating high interest debts into like a low interest loan or some sort of balance or credit transfer. These are things that can make debt a little bit more manageable and reduce the overall cost. Another thing is just to negotiate with creditors. So, it takes a little bit of effort to pick up the phone and call somebody and figure out what's going on and to be on hold. But these are the things that can really make a difference when it comes to our finances, and contacting those creditors to negotiate lower rates or reduce the fees or modify payment plans, something like that. And then lastly, to cut expenses. So this is such a simple thing, but people care about how things look. So in many cases, we see that people are not willing to really delay that satisfaction or that gratification and live within or below their means to put them in a better financial situation. But, redirecting that saved money towards paying off principal, for example, goes a long way, especially when you talk about larger debts that need to be paid down. Okay, so just to have a little bit of engagement here, I have a scenario which is basically which debt do you pay off first? So let's just say there's two loans with the same terms, the same interest rate, but different amounts. One being $7,000 on 18% interest, and the other being $65,000 on 18% interest. So just put it in the chat. I'm interested to know, which debt would you pay off first? Are you going to pay off the $7,000 or the $65,000? And maybe Tawana, you can kind of let me know what the what the vibe is in the chat, what people are saying.
Yes, it looks like the 7, the credit card, 7. I also say the 7.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Likewise.
so that's
Yeah.
consensus. This looks like the 7. The credit card debt is where people are going.
Okay. Interesting. So there's really 2 different methods that are being shown here. The first one with the credit card debt would be the snowball method, which really chips away at smaller debts first, while making like the minimum payment on everything else. So, and I kept 18% interest rate on both, just to keep it simple as an example. But the other method being the avalanche method, so the school loan debt, which tackles the debt with typically the larger amount and the largest interest rate. So just to give you guys like a little bit of background, when I was paying off my school loans, I also did like the snowball effect. So I was chipping away at those smaller amounts. And for me, it was really gratifying because I'm like, okay, cool. Like that debt is gone, that debt is gone. And it was motivating. But now if I could go back in retrospect, I would probably try to tackle the larger amount, especially with the high interest rate, because over time, 18% interest on $65,000 is going to be a lot more than 18% interest on $7,000. So I think there's not really a wrong or right method. I think it's kind of like what keeps you motivated and what helps you kind of see the results, faster to keep it going. But that's just, my personal experience and 2 different methods that people use to pay down that debt.
So that's interesting. So I remember hearing one time, and I don't know if it was, credibility matters, right? And I don't know if I heard this from a credible source, but it was something that I heard and it stuck, right? So I don't even know if it was good advice at the time. But I heard that student loan debt is thought of by creditors a little differently. So when they see that debt is student loan related, they tend to extend a little more grace because it was a student loan debt versus a credit card debt or some other type of debt. And so that's why I went with I would take care of the credit card debt first, thinking that somehow if someone saw my credit report only student loan debt, that they would, kind of, again, have grace and be able to say, okay, well, she's done really well with her credit and there's only this debt left. She would be a good risk for us. So is that not true?
I think there's some truth to that. Yeah, there's some truth to that. And I mean, even here, so I wonder if this was a different type of debt instead of school loans, would people still choose to pay off the $7,000?
Yeah.
Because but here in this case, they are viewed a little different, right? Yeah, interesting. But yeah, I think you're correct. There's some truth to like how debt is perceived. I think medical bills also fall in that category. Typically, there's a little bit more grace given when it comes to debt associated with medical expenses.
Oh, I love, Chris, that you gave us the numbers. So Chris said, so the difference in the interest that you would pay, $1,260 on the 7,000 versus 11,700 on the 65,000. That matters. That's a big difference.
But this is my question with that is, how would you pay that off to eliminate that? Like, again, who has $65,000 to be able to rapidly pay that off to avoid that annual interest? So you also, it's the mechanism by the how versus actually the amount as well. Like I could easily kind of allocate and get that 7,000 down, even with the accrued 1,000 additional interest. But even with that 65,000, there's no way that I'm going to make a significant amount of payments that's going to deter that 11,000. I'm still going to probably be paying at least $6,000 or $7,000 of that, even in that annual interest.
Yeah, I guess that's why there's no right or wrong answer, right? Because
yeah, like I always say, like, how would you even attempt to pay that? Because like I would say I'm in the student loan camp. That's the only debt that I have, and that becomes like, do I sacrifice and just live in a hovel to pay all the amount of money, and so I can avoid the interest, or how do I do that?
So I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. So when Chris and I guess I don't know when we started tackling our student loan debt, but yes, if you say lived in a hobble, we did to pay off those school loans. I mean, we were eating like, oodles and noodles and hot dogs for like, a year. But we wanted to get rid of the debt because we knew that there were other things we wanted to do with that money. So we just kind of grounded it out. We sat down and made some calculations about, okay, what can we pay additional on the principal per month, and how is this going to affect the overall impact of that. But I mean, for that amount, of course, it takes some time, right? It's not an easy feat, and I think that's why the snowball method is a little bit more attractive, because you can really see it. It's like weight that you can just see the pounds coming off. So it's valid. It can be hard to tackle such a huge amount. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. We've got a couple of comments. Kevin made a note that student loan debt cannot be wiped out by bankruptcy. Which, Kevin, I just recently heard someone say something contrary to that. That was always what I thought, but someone just recently said that they were able to get student loans wiped out with bankruptcy. So I don't know how true that is. But Tracy said, I'm generally weary of consumer debt, so I always want to rid myself of it. Even if I pay off $65K, the interest might be accruing on the $7K. And then Tuseda said, my thought was, if you have a student loan at 18% interest, you need to refinance this because that's crazy. And then Latrice says, my thought process is that you pay off the smaller debt first, and then you put the extra payments towards the larger debt so that you don't pay the maximum interest once you can pay it off. And then Beulah said, what took me time to understand the 18% is over a year. You pay percentage of 18% over a month. Oh, hold on. Let's say that again. She said,
go ahead, Chris. I see you.
Go ahead, Chris. You want to address that?
So the annual figures that I put in, you would just divide that by 12. So for the 7,000, it'd be $105 monthly, and for the 65,000, it's close to $1,000 per month. So yeah.
That's still significant to me. Yeah. Kevin said, the sooner you can pay off the smaller debt, the sooner you can repurpose those dollars and redirect them. Yeah.
And that, like we said, I think that's why people say there's no right or wrong way. It's just really kind of like what keeps you motivated and what you can do with your finances.
Right.
And that's why, I mean, yes, good debt and bad debt. I hate debt, but obviously we also need debt to survive.
Right.
Okay, so these are just questions to ask when we talk about repayment strategies, or if you're entering into new debt, for example. So these are just things that come to mind. One, are there any prepayment penalties? So prepayment penalties do exist. Sometimes there are fees associated with paying down things early, and which just kind of goes to show how, institutions and certain firms don't really want us to pay down our debt. But like I mentioned, sometimes our debt, somebody has invested in it. So obviously, if you pay it down early, they might not get their full anticipated returns. So sometimes you see this with different loans. You see this with the different real estate loans. So just something to keep in mind. Are there any prepayment penalties for paying things down? Obviously, is the interest rate fixed or variable? Do other lenders or providers have better interest rates? How long would it take you to just pay something in cash if you save the money and just waited? Another really important question are the fees associated with taking on debt, because sometimes the fees can just be ridiculous. And then also, what is the process to pay the principal down? Because as I mentioned, sometimes these institutions don't want you to pay, they don't want you to pay it down, right? They want you to pay the minimum. They want you to pay the interest. And when I was paying off my school loans, for example, with each additional payment to principal, I had to write a letter or, type up a letter and send it to them, saying where the funds were allocated. So, I mean, it was inconvenient. Obviously, I did it, but sometimes the process to pay down the principal is annoying. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, do your own analysis on what you can afford. Do not let the bank overextend your finances, because they don't know your financial situation as well as you do. So definitely make sure you do your own due diligence about your finances when you go to, open up new lines of credit and things like that.
Can we go back to the how long it would take me to save and pay in cash?
Yes.
This one speaks to the instant gratification thing that we have in our community, right? We want it now. We see that nice new shiny thing and we want it now. And, this is one of the areas where I want to thank my mother. So when I was little, I never got it now. I always got what I asked for, but I never got it right away. Now I know now that's because she didn't have the money right away, right? But I never got it instantly. And so I don't necessarily have that I have it now mentality. So I do tend to save for the things that I want, right? I'm going to eventually get it, but I save to pay cash. And that's another lesson I did learn from my mother, is that she used credit to her advantage. So she would use her credit card, but then she would pay it off. And I remember trying to do that when I was younger and never worked, right? Because it was just like, you just kept using it. And then I got into credit card trouble, right? And realized, well, her strategy was a lot better, because she was just playing that game to be able to boost her credit score. But I wish as a community in general, we paid attention to this one more and really started to save so that we could buy all of the luxuries that we want. I'm not saying don't get the stuff, right? If you want the stuff, get the stuff. But what I am saying is that I think if you have to use the credit card, if that's the only way you can get the stuff, then you can't afford the stuff. And I think that's the point I would love for the community to understand a little more. Save the money, pay cash, or even save the money, put it on the credit card, right? Get some points, right? So if you got a credit card that has points, but then when that bill comes, pay it off, because technically you had the money to pay for it. You use the system of credit to kind of to get the benefit of it, but you didn't need the credit to get the item. So I love that you put this on here.
It's a big point, like you said, especially in our community, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of one of the last things I want to talk about is passing the torch. So how can we influence the next generation? So I read a study that said research shows that children start developing their behaviors around money as early as age 3. And they are nearly solidified by age 7, which to me is kind of crazy. But, when I look back on, how I was brought up, I can definitely see how this was true, because I had to unlearn a lot of the ideas that I had surrounding money. So the financial habits and financial literacy that I learned in my household actually did not set me up for success, I would say. And no fault to my mother or anything like that, but you only know what you know, and I had to unlearn many things. But now we are fortunate enough to be in a situation where we have access to so many resources. Information is just so readily available. So learning about money, learning about wealth, it's a constant education that that I take seriously, and I'm sure this whole community does. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But I wanted to just list a few things with regards to, the next generation. So one, it is that seeing is believing. Those financial habits that children see taking place in their household, they will have a lasting impression on them, whether good or bad. So Tawana, you gave a good example. I have a bad example, but either way, we see that it's had lasting and impressions on us. Another thing is,
and I'll just add, I'll just add. Remember, I said she did these things. She didn't teach me what she was doing. So I saw her pulling out the credit card. I didn't see her paying the bill in its entirety every month. I didn't know that part of the story, right? I saw her using the card. So my behavior was bad behavior. and when I was younger, because I didn't get the complete picture. So seeing is believing, but we also have to have the conversation about finances and credit and debt and all of those things so that we could understand the entire story.
Very true. I think I
Absolutely.
did that lesson with my child. I involved her very early in my finances. I would show her my pay stubs. I would show her all the bills. I'm an Excel spreadsheet kind of person. So I had a Excel spreadsheet for myself, and she had a little tab. So all of her expenses were on that. I would show her she was a gymnast for a very long time, which was a very expensive thing. And I would itemize the list and show her, this is what you've racked up over the year for 1 year over and over. And then I would show her how the money would actually impact her. So I said, okay, you want this thing, look at what you spend in this month for gymnastics. Which one do you want more? Or can you delay that? And I always showed her the credit card statements. So she was very aware of those things. And I gave her a credit card early on in her life. I put her on my credit cards as an authorized user. So like at 18, she had an 800 credit score because she had been doing that for so long. But those are the things that were helpful. And her school, which I really appreciated, had a credit union attached to it inside the school. And in 9th grade, they all got free accounts. And she had that account from 9th grade until she graduated. And this was the first year she got to pull from her student loan. She got to go to her credit union and ask for her student loan, and with a very like a 2.4 credit rate, like interest rate. So those were the things that were built in there. But I was very conscientious of making sure she had that exposure, even if she didn't understand. And she'd be like, well, what is that again? And how does that work? She would ask me over and over, but she always had full transparency to what money was in her household.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And
that's awesome.
She still
did not have that. Your parent did not provide that.
She still wants what she wants and asks for crazy things, but she sees that it doesn't just come from thin air. It doesn't just magically appear.
You can just drop the mic on that one.
Yeah, right.
She's 21 and she still lives with me. So there you go. So keep that in mind as well.
So, I mean, essentially that really is my last slide. Everything you just mentioned. I mean, my second point, teaching children, teaching younger generations the difference between credit cards and debit cards. Some children or children will easily begin to understand that a card is like cash. Maybe they never even see cash at all nowadays. So many people just use cards, but it's important that they understand how debit and credit works and the differences there. Also incentivizing them for saving. For example, if your child doesn't have a bank account set up yet, you can still teach them about interest and incentivize them by providing them interest. There's also apps that can do this for you, but right now it's important to teach them to save, but eventually we need to teach them to save to invest. Right. That's how we get to the next level. That's how we build wealth. That's how we kind of change our perception about money. Another thing is the secured credit card. So when a person turns 18, I mean, they could get a credit card, but they could also get a secured credit card, which requires some sort of deposit. Typically that correlates with the credit limit. So let's just say, for example, they put a $200 deposit in, they get a $200 credit limit. So this is, it's not a long-term solution, but it is something that will help build their credit as they, use it and then pay it back off. And then, like it was just mentioned, setting up your minor as an authorized user on your account. So typically, I think this is possible when kids are like 13 to 15 years old. But you can call your card issuer to check, and also to confirm whether or not your card activity will be reported to the credit bureaus on their behalf. So obviously, if it's not reported, I wouldn't fool with it because it's not going to benefit them. But it's pretty common now where, your activity, your diligence and paying that debt back will positively, affect them as their authorized users on your account. So that does wrap it up for me. We've had a little bit discussion already, or also if anybody has some tips that, weren't shared, it would be great to kind of hear from the audience.
Yeah, so Kevin just said, I lost $1,000 to my son's secured credit card because of his mismanagement.
Mm. Yeah, and a lot of people will make their children save up for that themselves. So
it's
at the end of the
their
day, it's their money. And well, it would be their loss, right?
Right, right. Because it hits different when it's their money and their loss. It really
It
does.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
When
know
it's
it
on a
hit
different
different when it was
card, but,
mine, when
yeah.
it started being mine, right?
When she has to make a purchase on her credit card versus my Apple Pay, she's very much like, wait a minute, I need to consider. She takes a little more time, if she's not swiping my own, and then she's on her own. But I do think they have a different value, but I think that also comes early on. If they value money, I think it's not just whose money it is, it's just money in general. I think we need to have a better respect for it. And if you understand that it does come with work and other things and taxes, like my daughter hates taxes and she hated tax. She's like, why can't you get that full amount? There's a better amount on that left-hand side. I was like, I know, girl, right? Can I get that part? She's like, what's all this in the middle? I was like, yeah, that's the sucky part of working.
Yeah, but that's all part of the conversation, right? It all goes back to the conversation we have
Mhm.
with our children, with ourselves, with our spouses. I love that you said the two of you tackled it together, right? And tackled that debt and student loans together. All of that is part of the conversation. And the one thing I would do different, because I did not do what Talisha did with the spreadsheet and the education. Listen, I didn't do that. My son probably grew up with trauma behind financial situations, right? Because creditors were calling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I don't mind sharing this because that's not my story today. So I can tell my testimony, right? But we had a code. When I would call him, I would call twice back to back because I didn't want him to pick up the phone and have a creditor attack him, because creditors used to be mean. I don't know if they're still mean because that's not my issue anymore, right? But they used to be cutthroat. I mean, they'd be like, you need to pay and we coming to your house. I mean, they were cutthroat. So shit, we were scared to answer the phone. It was that bad. And so I didn't want him to have to deal with that. But there's a trauma that I knew he had around finances and not having enough. And I remember one time he asked for a pair of Jordans and I was so fed up with just like trying to make ends meet, that his lesson in reality was like, here's the checkbook, here's the bill, here's my check, and I had like a pad that I would keep all my bills on. I never used the register in the checkbook, but I wrote everything down and I like tossed everything at him one day in a frenzy. I think he was like 12. And I was like, if you can figure out how to get some damn Jordans, then you can have them, right? Imagine how traumatizing that was.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But that was the vibe. Like money
Mhm.
was a problem. Not having enough was an issue, right? Credit card debt was a problem. And so I remember when I had my kind of turnaround moment was one time there was a letter from Sears Credit on my door. And I know now that they had skip traced me, like, you understand what had happened now. Sears didn't come knock on the door and put the letter, but at the time, that's what I thought happened. I was like, oh shit, they knocking on doors? Like, we gotta figure this out because I can't have them knocking on doors. But what they did was they had skip traced, found a neighbor who also was a Sears Credit customer, called him and asked him to put a note on my door to return their phone calls.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
No.
And my son was, I was a single mom, so he stayed at home, he was home, after school and all that stuff. And that I got like completely, when you talk about scared straight, they didn't have to take me to jail to scare me straight. Knowing that someone put a note on my door, right, when my son was home alone, not knowing who this someone was, scared the shit out of me. And I got it together. Like I got it. I started educating myself. I started asking people questions who I knew had good financial sense. Like I have a lot of uncles and aunts that are like professionals and they had money and they lived good lives. And so I started, instead of being ashamed of my situation and keeping it to myself, I started then asking those people who I saw living the way I wanted to live, what they were doing. And that's what made the difference. And so I say two things: talk about it with people who are doing the right thing. And then the other thing, don't be ashamed of where you are today, because it is not who you will be or what you will be. And so please know that about yourselves. So I can share that story now because I'm proud of who I am today. But I tell you, I would never have been able to tell you And I don't even know what my credit score used to be. Now I'm over 800, but I don't know. I think I probably, if 200 is a thing, I was in. I mean, when they come on your door telling you to call back, you know you're doing something wrong.
I didn't even think that it was possible. They shouldn't be even involving other people in other people's business. That to me just seems
Can you
unethical.
imagine the embarrassment
That's unethical in so many ways. I just couldn't do that. But I think there's also the flip side of that, being overly frugal. And I was a young person doing adult things and didn't have a lot of guidance. So I was what I consider a money hoarder. I modeled professionally for some time in my life. And if people don't understand, like, you just get a check, they don't tell you about taxes. They don't tell you that you got to pay your agent. There's all this stuff that comes out. They just hand you a check and go about your business. I was so scared. Like, you say that scared you. I got my first check and I was like, I know that I cannot keep this money. Like, that's all. I was like, somebody has to tell me what to do. And they're just like, just take the money and go cash a check. Like, everybody was very dismissive and kind of cavalier about it. And I was so terrified. I was in New York City by myself, not knowing. I couldn't call my parents. So I walked into the bank and I was like, I need to cash this check, but I need you to take the money. And the woman's like, what's wrong, sweetheart? I was like, you have to take the money. And I'm like crying at the teller. She's like, girl, it's a check. Just we'll cash it. I'm like, you just take the money. Just take the money. And she's like, no idea why this child is crying in the bank. So there's like that. And I would always like put 80% of my check and only have like $20 to $40 with me at any time period. And I would like check how I was eating, and I was living with 6 other people. And I'm like, y'all have to pay the rent at this point. So I was like this like dragon lady in my household, like, you need to pay me this rent. And they're like, who are you? You're not my mother. And I'm like, everybody, it's the 5th. You need to pay your money. And they were just like crazed, like, why are you so obsessed? But I was like, we can't get kicked out. We have to keep the water on. We have to do these things, and we don't know when our next checks are coming. So we have to do it like this. So I made everybody overly responsible, which I think I was mothering before I was a mother. And that was also trauma because I was overly fearful about what would happen to me.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. We've got a couple of comments. Beulah said, I attempted to share my bills with my son. He did not understand until he had his own money. When he considered getting out of the military after his 4 years, I gave my bills to him again, and all I had shared helped him to stay in the military. Now he's all set. He purchased his own home. Very nice.
Hey, that's awesome.
Kevin Brooks said, I remember a time wishing a creditor would knock on my door, show up in my house. Beulah said, I told my son I would not purchase sneakers that cost more than $39.99. He worked at his grandfather's restaurant to purchase more expensive sneakers. Now he really pays attention to purchasing things. Very good, Beulah. Kevin said, Talisha, that's the most animated he's ever seen you.
If you would have seen me then, you would have been scared because they were scared of me. My roommates were like, oh my God, she's going to kill us in our sleep.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. This has been a really good conversation. This is really, I love that we've talked about debt before, but not in this way. And this conversation really I feel like we've talked about it from a credit perspective and really talking about it from a debt perspective, because that's what we're talking, that ultimately is what the credit causes, right? I really like this approach better because it gave the bigger 360 picture. So thank you guys. This was good.
It was.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, and this is what I like to ask in general, because this is, again, something that happened to me. I had an envisionment of debt-free versus wealthy. And I always thought if I could just get to 0, that things would be better. Like everything would just be best and great if I just could get to 0. Right. And I was striving for that all the time, like no credit card debt, no this, no that. Like I just wanted that 0. And I know a lot of people confuse that, like what debt-free really means versus what does, again, using debt rather to build wealth. I think, how would you attest to that, and how would you address that for most people?
Well, that's a very valid point. So I've personally never, of course, I think about being debt free, but not to the point of like not having any debt, if that makes sense. It's right. More so, those differences between the good debt and the bad debt. And I mean, basically right now, I mean, we have mortgages and that's it. So, from my perspective, I mean, that's not like 100% debt free, but it is in a position to build wealth, through that debt. So I mean, that's my take on it. Chris, I don't know if you want to speak to it. You are the finance guy, so I did the presentation today, but Chris, he is the finance person.
She's kicking it to you.
No, so but yeah, that's a good point, Valentina. A lot of people leverage debt to build wealth, right? And she talked about, good debt versus bad debt, and debt could be a good avenue to build wealth. If you look at real estate, for example, if you've written the asset out, someone's taking care of the mortgage and some, you're receiving cash flow. So that cash flow can be, used on other expenses or to build that up to acquire other properties. And then over 2 or 3, 4 year time period, you take the benefit of the appreciation, right? So, but you can leverage debt in so many ways, and so many different loan products where you can really take advantage of it and build wealth rather quickly.
And for us, obviously, it always goes back to real estate. We love real estate, our company, but that's so true. I mean, we're always learning about new forms of debt, like debt products we didn't know existed, and as investors, and just different ways to build wealth from debt. So that's an interesting point you made, Chris, because there are a lot of avenues regarding debt that are still to be explored when we look at using debt to build wealth.
And when you look at banks, right, they're using OPM, other people's money, to build their asset, build their balance sheet. We can do the same thing. We can use the bank's money to build our assets and build our wealth. We just have to be, diligent and smart with it and really plan. And a lot of these, lenders or individuals you can partner with can help you strategize the ways to achieve your goal.
That's a very, very good point. So I just had a great idea. I hope you all think it's a great idea too. So you guys know how we have Dr. Cherie come every quarter and give us the economic report. I would love you guys to come back every quarter. We get to talk about secure living, of course, but to teach us about some of these debt products that can help us. I mean, I would absolutely love to partner with you guys in that way.
Okay. Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, as I said, of course, it's still a journey for us, but for sure we have stuff in our back pocket that we can kind of come and discuss, and we'd be happy to do that.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, Tracy said, I need some debt strategies, right? Right. Tracy, we all do. Tracy and I get on the phone sometimes, and I think she said, so in a note up here, what did she say? She said, she says, I'm at $0 in debt, and she doesn't feel financially secure like she thought she would. She's anxious, right?
And that's the point.
Yeah. And so Tracy and I get on the phone sometimes just kind of talking about strategy, like what can we do? Like, what can we invest in? Like, what's the next best thing? But there is this anxious anxiety around it that I don't want to have anymore, right? So we need to educate ourselves on what those products are, so that we know exactly what to look for that is that's not a reactionary investment, right? But it's an educated, strategic move. And that's what in this next stage of my financial investing life, I want to be strategic. I don't want to be emotional about it, right? I want to be strategic. That's going to be the word for me for 2024 in my own life, and for the community. I want to pass that on to you guys as well. Let's be strategic. Let's do what we have to do to eliminate the bad debt, right? Let's get some disposable income so that we can invest accordingly in these things that are strategic based on where we want to be in our lives. So, and we would love, Valentina, we would love you and Chris to help us on that journey.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, this has been great. Thank you guys so much thank you again to the founders that helped us this weekend. I see, we go to participants. I thought I saw Tuseda in there. Yes, Tuseda, thank you so very much for your donation to the conference item. The conference was a hit. We took some pictures. We're gonna get some pictures and some videos out there, but thank you so much for your contribution. I don't see anyone else in the chat that I need to say thank you to, but we're gonna get a notification out to everyone that the conference was a success. We're telling more people who we are at the 10K Project. I will tell you, this group that we were a part of, again, it's Black Women Who Love Outdoor Spaces. They've got about 245,000 community members. There was about 700 or so at this conference. And it became less about talking about us and more about talking about the founders. And that felt amazing to do. And so we are going to do it again. So if you are a community member, you have a product, let us know about it, because I want to highlight more products. If you have a service that's going to help, the general public, I want to know about it, because we want to talk about you at the next conference.
Yes.
So next October, they've already scheduled the dates, and we're going to start working. Talisha and I are going to start working on who we want to invite to partner with us to be able to bless some of these community members, Black women who are in many situations making decisions for investment for their families, right? Working with their spouses to make decisions on wealth building. And we want to set them up to do so responsibly. And we also want them to continue to buy Black and invest Black and all of those things that we want to do. And they want to do that too. They ate it up. I mean, when we started talking about, but they were like, wait, should I? Because they wanted to buy stuff we had on the table. And we were like,
everybody wanted to buy everything. Like, can we
they wanted to buy
buy
everything? We were like, no, it's not for sale. They looked at us like, what do you mean?
And then they were mad that they had to spin the wheel.
Mad at us.
And then I'm like, you're gonna win a prize if you spin the like. I want to spin.
We
the
were
wheel.
like, spin the wheel. And they like, we don't want to spin the wheel. I want to buy that watch. I want to buy that. We was like, you can't buy it though. Like, we're not selling anything.
We were like, it was like the reverse of the Price is Right. They were just like, here is the money, and I'm like, oh, you have to play the game.
But it was very interesting to me, and I don't know if it's a Black woman thing, right? Because it was a Black woman conference. But I don't know if it's a Black woman thing. We don't know how to just accept a gift. That was a takeaway that I had. We don't know how to accept a gift. When I tell you, they were like, no, I just want to buy. It's not for sale, lady. Like, you can say that 5 more times. I'm not selling you to say this shirt. Like, I don't even know what to charge for it, because I didn't buy it. So I'm giving it away to you because it was given to me to give away to you. Like, it was just this very weird, wonderful kind of thing. And actually to say they had the journals, not the shirts. But it was this really weird thing that we had to say over and over again. But they love when they said everything in this room is Black, everything is Black owned in this. Yeah, everything.
I think I even had
that was they just lit up by that. Like, everybody lit up when they came to our room.
We had this, and this is our little QR code, and I made a little website that had everything, and we kept saying everything you see here is a Black owned founder, and you can find the list here. And they were just like scrolling. They instantly were scrolling. Oh, where's the website? Show me the website. And what about? I'm like, it's there for you. And I do think there was something about having a room full of products that were Black owned, and everything I just like, this is somebody that we know. We can say, I know this person who made this thing for you. We've spoken to them. We brought them to the community. They're part of our community. That was a really nice thing. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
I was very proud.
Yeah, that was nice, because we did, I would talk about the founder. When I talked about Uncle Waithley's, I was saying, Carl did this and Carl's going to do that, so it was just like this very personal. It wasn't just a directory. It wasn't just, like the as seen here, as seen on TV stores.
As seen on TV, yes.
Like, it wasn't just that, right? It wasn't just a store full of stuff as seen here. It was like a connection to the founders. And so I realized that we need to do more of that. I would love to have you guys be a part of that discussion next year as well, because we need to get more people to your platform. We absolutely need to get more people to the platform to see the deal flow that you have there, and to start, really, really thinking about building wealth with the real estate asset class, because real estate is scary to some people. Even though we know it's one of the best asset classes, a lot of people are intimidated by it. And so, that's why I love what you guys are doing, because it makes it more palatable. right? To be able to say, okay, this is crowdfunding, and I can kind of ease my way into this real estate space and learn about it along the way, instead of, you know, trying to buy an apartment building with 25 doors and I don't have a clue what I'm doing, right? So I love that, you know, I want to get more people in front of your platform the same way I'm trying to get them in front of mine. So when I see good partners, you know, for me, it's about us trying to do this together. So I appreciate you guys so very much. I appreciate you for believing in 10K when you were, you know, launching and get it out there for your with your own stuff. I appreciate that. That means something special to me. And for me, I don't go anywhere alone. I take everybody that believed in me with me. And so you guys are always kind of, you know, there. I'm thinking about you. I'm talking about you. And for me, that's what matters. So thank you for taking your time, educating us this evening. And I just look forward to many, many more conversations like this.
Likewise. Thanks so much. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to the community. Tomorrow's night pitch is, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is a returning founder. One of our founders from year one is coming back. And it actually ties into what we talked about tonight. It's financial literacy.
Yes.
It actually ties in, but he's doing it in schools. So come tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and you will see and experience, if you haven't, a returning founder. And I'm always excited when a returning founder comes, right? Because that means they made enough money that they believed in us a second time to come back again, right? So that's always a plus. So that's going to be an exciting conversation. We get to get an update for those who may have invested in him 2 years ago, and then to be able to hear the progress he's making now, to be able to seek out new investors. So I will see mostly all of you, I hope, tomorrow. To those of you who are watching live, come on in the Zoom tomorrow. Come on in the Zoom. But if you don't, we're going to come to you live. So you get the best of both worlds. With that, your girl going to get some sleep. Because that was a bumpy car ride. It rained the entire time home. Like every city we went through from Houston to Kentucky, it was raining. It's like, really? So it was.
Evan, you don't know me very well, so that's why. Maybe you should tune in more often, and you would get to see me like this.
Oh, Kevin said he wanted. Kevin said this. Kevin,
No, I'm not on
about you being
Kevin.
animated.
No, I'm always like this. Trust.
Kevin, she is. She's like, I don't know why she's reserved for you guys. She is not the way you
I'm
guys
not reserved.
You are a little reserved on Monday night. You are. And then they don't see you on Tuesday because you have your little thing up.
Well, that's not for me. I'm not a part of the conversation. I'm supposed to be working. That's what I do. I'm the back end person, and I need to be working.
They enjoyed your front end this morning.
Whatever.
This evening. All right, guys. I think I'm giddy. Okay, let me.
We're both kidding. I didn't get home until 1. I think we're all sleep
because her flight was
deprived.
delayed, so she's equally as tired. All right, guys. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful evening. I love you guys. I'll see you all tomorrow. To the community, thank you again for riding with us. To Vantina and Chris, thank you so very much for everything that you do. And thank you for blessing us tonight with education, because that is the foundation of what we're trying to do here. Wealth building means nothing if it's not educated, right? We just throwing money to the wind. That ain't gonna get us nowhere. So thank you for bringing your expertise and your educating spirit to us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.